From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello, I'm Alison Mitchell and welcome to Stumped. With me for the ABC is Jim Maxwell in Sydney and Cherish Sharma is with us for Akashvani in Hubballi. Now, what next for England and Ben Stokes after the captain's international retirement was announced while he was on the field on day 4 of the third test against New Zealand? Stokes was in the middle of a bowling spell at Trent Bridge when a statement dropped confirming he'd be ending his 15-year international career at the end of the match. I can tell you it put the press box into a complete frenzy. In a remarkable piece of theatre, Stokes then took a wicket with his very next ball after the announcement was made, just as the crowd had become aware. And fair to say, the news caught everyone by surprise. Jim, it's been a strange old time. I'll give you my perspective in a minute, but what did you and others in Australia make of the way Stokes handled his retirement with a test match and a series still to be won?
I don't think he handled it very well, actually. It's not always a good idea to stick the camera and the microphone in the dressing room when a captain's talking to his players about a decision like that. It's probably best to get him afterwards somewhere else, but that's the nature of the business these days. And yes, I don't think there was a memorable line out of that particular little speech that he gave to his team. And I don't think much of what he did on that day is particularly memorable, other than for the extraordinary circumstances of the announcement, a wicket then with the next ball. My goodness, he's been the most theatrical performer in many ways that we've seen for a number of years, given the deeds, the things that have come off when he's been involved in the game. But it was a very ordinary way for him to go. I actually thought this was the most disrespectful performance by England on that fourth day, given that they had a somewhat illusory target perhaps, but one that they could have made a fist of. And what do? They threw wickets away in a blaze of 15 overs, and really Duckett was the only one who got out to a decent ball. So it wasn't a very happy experience to watch that. And I don't know whether that contributed to the flat crowd on the final day, even though they were allowed in for nothing. But I thought it was all a bit of a fizz, unfortunately, and a huge disappointment, given that Stokes seemed to be very much in the game when the series began. And then there was the curfew, which is kid stuff, should never have happened. And obviously a falling out with management, maybe with McCullum in a continuation from where they were at the end of the Ashes. And so there it is. It's happened. What a shame for cricket. We'll miss him.
Yeah. Alison, all very dramatic for sure. And we'll probably hear the deeper reasons behind all of this as time goes on. But you've covered a lot of matches featuring Ben Stokes. And did you see this coming?
No, not at this test match, not now. Certainly not an announcement. I've never known an announcement like that to come in the middle of a match, let alone in the middle of the day's play. It was extraordinary. I mean, I've interviewed Ben Stokes a lot over his career, both before he was captain and then when he was captain, and I was fortunate to witness a lot of those incredible feats that he performed as well, whether it was the double 100 in Cape Town, the World Cup Super Over, of course, the Headingley miracle. He's a T20 World Cup winner as well, a vital half-century in the final in 2022. That often sort of gets overlooked by the incredible test match feats and, of course, the World Cup as well. But certainly at the Lord's test match, the first one of the summer, he didn't seem himself, and a lot of us remarked that to each other. And he actually did then say on the outfield at Trent Bridge, he admitted that he was, in his words, a bit aggy, a bit aggro around that match because he was having all these thoughts about retirement. So it clearly wasn't something which just has come as a result of the fallout from the Lord's test match and the curfew, etc. He was already thinking it post-Ashes. And so all of that fallout and, an Ashes defeat in that manner absolutely has an impact. And that's not just the results, is it? It's the relationships and how those work out, behind it as well. So I think I've, in my mind, almost sort of, when thinking about Ben Stokes, it's kind of separating, what happened on that final day at Trent Bridge, or the day 4 in terms of the playing, because, his captaincy went down in a blaze, not a blaze of glory. it burns out in every. He says he's burnt out. Well, the way he batted, and therefore the rest of the team. I guess over time we'll find out just how much of Bazball was about Baz and how much was about Ben. But yeah, that was a really disappointing way for his captaincy to end. And you're right, Jim, about the crowd feeling flat almost. It feels as if this ethos of slogging their way to success, that's not going to work in the Test arena, because it's meaning that players are just bludgeoning themselves to oblivion. And I don't believe that the talented players in that England team deserve that. And certainly the fans don't either. But Jim, one thing that Stokes said in interview after day 4, he said, it might sound quite selfish, but this decision is genuinely the best thing for me right now. The question is, what state does it leave the team in without their captain and key all-rounder? Any captain wants to leave a team in a better place going forwards, or at least have this sense of handover. So where do you see this England team left now?
I'm not too sure. It'll be very interesting to see how they come up. Perhaps they're fortunate, with all due respect to Pakistan, that's the next team they play, because that's more the kind of quality of opposition that they've made their name against with Bazball. But when it's come to the better teams, they haven't looked quite as polished, as disciplined as they needed to be. So does Joe Root pull this together? Is it Harry Brook? I mean, he's behaving like a dolt at times when he bats. That's the dolt without the A. And I'm not sure where they can go in the immediate future. But this is going to linger for a while, and you just wonder how many other changes may take place in the near future. But there's so much cricket happening for England, it's hard to stop, take a breath, and say, right, we're going to put a marker down here. This is what we're going to do, because it just keeps flowing. So they've got some problems, I think, and hopefully they can find a way of pulling it all together. But it looks a bit shaky.
Alison, it isn't my take is that it's not all gloom and doom for England cricket. They will survive. I mean, this is one of a dozen examples that's happened around the world where people do leave and new people come in. But I have to ask you, what next individually for Ben Stokes? Do you think he's still got the appetite for franchise cricket, maybe IPL and a few others?
Yeah, well, he's just talked about Durham at the moment, hasn't he? But it does open up the opportunity for him to look at franchise cricket and the IPL. But I think he's taking a break at the moment and a holiday, and then he will let Durham know when he's going to be available for them. So could he feature in the 100, more in the future? It's still a little bit difficult to imagine him, in a year's time. Say there's a different regime around the England team, say maybe different managerial backing of the ECB. Could we yet see a remarkable Stokes turnaround and a comeback for an Ashes series as one last crack under a different captain, maybe under the captaincy of his good friend Joe Root even? There's so much that could still happen. But I don't know, if he wanted to play IPL, Chari, you'd imagine surely there would be a lot of interest.
Yes, and strangely, I feel like saying no, because
go on.
This whole impact sub thing that has to go.
Yes,
because
all-rounder.
He's a fabulous all-rounder. But where does he fit in if it's only batting or only bowling? So, and also a couple of other things which are tangential, and bear with me. One, there's a lot of importance on captaincy in the IPL teams. It takes, it's very visible and it's all out there. And if he's going to be a little bit of a reluctant player and not out there to say, yes, I'll come to an IPL team, yes, I'll captain, and yes, I'll be like the family that, a captain sort of makes the whole team feel, then I think teams will be happy to have him, perhaps for that leadership role. But if he's going to be somewhat, if I can use the term, a reluctant hero, then a lot of teams may say, well, it could be a little bit of a maverick situation where the captain doesn't quite know how to deal with him and whether to play him or not. You can't have a Ben Stokes in your team and not play him. I mean, that would be ridiculous because there's so many quality overseas players who unfortunately don't get a single game in the IPL. So I think a lot of the IPL teams will be confused unless Ben Stokes, I think through his agent or whatever, makes that move and says, hey, guys, I'm ready, I'm willing, and of course I'm able and I'm happy to lead your team or do whatever it takes. He can't project being a reluctant hero. So we'll see how the IPL goes. But other leagues surely would love to have him.
So, Ali, captaincy, what's going to happen? Where do they go? Back to Joe Root, Harry Brook? Someone in the 19th century, they would have plucked an amateur out of the county championship who had the authority to look after the team. I don't know whether they can go back to Colin Cowdrey, but what can they do?
Well, this is it. There's a real lack of senior players, aren't there, in this team? I guess a result of the selections that have been made over the last 4 years, picking a lot of players on promise, and Jacob Bethel fits into that mode. He's already captained England, remember, in a T20 in T20 internationals. So I mean, you've got Harry Brook, as white ball captain, and that feeds into it as well, doesn't it? About can Harry Brook, who was the Test vice captain, but wasn't given the armband when Stokes was missing because of the obvious reasons of the Wellington nightclub incident. Could he be given the armband now? Well, Stokes has, backed him to have the armband, says, yeah, 100% he could. But I mean, if he's both Test captain and white ball captain, does the sort of cavalier nature of the batting continue? What we saw at Trent Bridge, that cavalier way that England lost the Ashes, you can't imagine that changing if it's a Brendan McCullum and Harry Brook combo at the top of the Test team. But then they would also be top of the white ball team. And they finished the Test match on Monday, travelled to Durham on Tuesday, playing India on Wednesday. I mean, how can anybody be ready and put in the right kind of planning and preparation for both of those series? So I think England cricket would be better served to try and separate those roles out again. How possible that is, given that Brendan McCullum is already contracted to both. But I could see how Brook and McCullum as a white ball combination, it's sort of white ball cricket that they've been playing in the Test arena anyway. So that would be an exciting combination. England Test team would probably be better served by a different approach now going forwards. But then those changes should have really been made post the Ashes. Like you said, Jim, there is no time now, you're in the English season, to really sort of sit back and take stock. But yeah, Joe Root, I thought he would be a reluctant captain, honestly, from having heard how much the captaincy affected him, how sort of relieved he was to almost hand over the armband and how much he's enjoyed just dropping back in the ranks and being a player. But then, at the Oval, I thought there was a genuine upbeatness about him. He's been really invigorated by playing under Brendan McCullum. Whether he was just putting it all on, for the show and supporting, Ben Stokes in that situation, never really quite know. But I thought that he genuinely sort of enjoyed having the armband again. But then again, he had a massive long day in the field where England were being hit to all parts and the bowling changes weren't working, and that was a reminder of just how tough captaincy was on Joe Root. So look, it's a really big question, but Brook and Root are the only two senior options for the Test team at the moment, and yet neither is ideal. I guess the other thing we're going to find out, though, is, like I said before, just how much of Bazball cricket was about Brendan McCullum now that Stokes has gone. But when you were watching that climax of the Trent Bridge Test, Jim, or rather the sinking of the ship, if you like, did you feel that Bazball was dying in those moments?
I seriously hope it's dead. But as long as McCullum's there, it'll be around. I think the Ashes series proved that unless you have a little bit of discipline and thoughtfulness allied to the very aggressive Bazball approach, you're going to lose to some teams. And that was such a spectacular loss. It deserved a little bit of a rethink, but I don't think McCullum can play it any other way. That's the way he played the game. Rain, hail, or shine. He played the same way. And whoever comes in to lead is going to be influenced by that. So they've got a problem. They're going to have to move on. When they do it, that'll be the question.
What about Stokes? I guess, how do you think he will be remembered? I mean, so much has happened in his career. There was the Bristol nightclub incident. He's come through the death of his father. He's managed extraordinary feats. And as an all-rounder, he and Jacques Kallis are the only cricketers with more than 7,000 runs and over 250 Test wickets. Charu, how do you believe Ben Stokes will be remembered?
Well, I mean, the first word that jumps to mind is talismanic. I mean, he was the go-to guy. Now, in cricket, it's a game of 11 and perhaps sometimes even the substitutes. But when you are always thinking of going to, the A+ guy, you think of Ben Stokes, and he's done that remarkably well throughout his career. And maybe that's also taken a bit of a toll, saying, why do you always keep coming back to me to try and save the game or get the wicket or whatever? But yeah, extraordinary talent, without doubt. Very strong, very sturdy, looked the part every time, physically as well, and certainly with his performances. So Talismanic jumps to mind, quite clearly a heroic role, sort of the lead role in the movie. That'd be him. With his looks and with his performance. But just a very quick thought on this whole Bazball thing. And we talked about this on Stump many years ago, saying, is he the right guy for England, Baz, to be leading the red ball cricket? Surely white ball cricket, because it's all Bazball anyway. And why play a test match like a T20 or a one-day international? Because the people or personnel are also different. You have different people playing test match cricket in a certain manner, and if you ask them to change their ways, it's not easy. And it's also very individualistic. You can't have 8 to 10 batsmen going out there and all slogging away. I mean, to see Joe Root at times playing the way he does in the whole Bazball era was shocking at times. Say, well, that's not him. So you've got to let players just do their own thing in a test match. And they're all hard-boiled professionals, for heaven's sake. They're not children. But to ask them to play only in a certain way, I think that was kind of limiting. And surely England have now learned a few lessons because of this, and maybe they'll go back to some more traditional ways of letting people play the way they are built for red ball cricket. But for Ben Stokes, yeah, I suppose simple 4-letter word, if I can use it, hero.
It's a good summation. Jim?
An exceptional cricketer. I've just thought lately he's more valuable actually to England from what I've been seeing as a bowler than a batsman. I think his powers as a match-winning batsman have dissipated. But as a bowler, you put that ball in his hand, he gets a wicket, you can't get him off. I mean, and that's where he probably overblown it a bit and got injured. But he is England's best bowler. They're going to miss more than just his brilliant all-round inspiration. They're going to miss, put it squarely in the box, his ability to get people out. So they've got some problems, I think, as we look at the side and attempt to rebuild, because the cupboard's a bit bare.
Yep, talismanic, absolutely, is the word for Ben Stokes. But also the team now without him, they need to start winning, because losses at home to India and now New Zealand, the England cricket fans just simply want to see wins, but they want to see wins against the big teams. And that's notably one thing that hasn't been achieved over the last 4 years. Well, that's it for Stumped for this week. Join us again next time and give us a like and subscribe to us here on YouTube so that you never miss a thing. Thanks to Jim Maxwell and Charish Sharma. See you next time. Bye-bye.